Jayden Daniels was on the Nightcap show with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco and was asked this question in a roundabout way because they're not trying, as best I could tell, to create a big issue here. It's just a hypothetical. How would you feel if Antonio Pierce, the Raiders head coach, drafted you? Here's what Jayden Daniels had to say.
I don't know how they're going to pull it off. But, I mean, that's above my pay grade, man. But
yeah, I wouldn't do it. I ain't trading. Why would I give up that? You're a transformational quarterback, Jay.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
I ain't giving that up.
Hey, man. Just AP, man. AP, just as a human being, he the right coach for that team. Just him and the intensity that it brings. He challenged people. He challenged me at 18. So I know if I was to go to the Raiders, I'm not saying I'm gonna go there or I want to go there. I want to go wherever my name called. But if I was to go to Raiders, I know he go as soon as I step foot, he gonna challenge me. He don't care how high I was drafted, none of that. He gonna challenge me every day.
Now look, he said the right thing. I'll go wherever my name is called. But big smile talking about Antonio Pierce. It confirms a lot of the chatter that we're hearing behind the scenes. He wants Pierce and Pierce wants him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Raiders can pull it off. I don't know how they would pull it off to get up to number 2 to get him, or number 3 if the Commanders pass on Jayden Daniels. But you could just tell him the way he answered that. It was kind of a wistful and happy, wow, that would be pretty good, but yeah, I don't know how they're going to pull it off.
I don't know either, right? I mean, the draft process started out with this talk of Antonio Pierce and Jayden Daniels, and I think then, people like myself and the important decision makers and whatever else, you start to watch the quarterback film and you're like, well, Jayden Daniels ain't going to be there at 13. That ain't happening, right? So so I think that connection was made early on. Then it was like, wait, now it's too far away. It's not going to happen. And now, it's back on the radar a little bit because of the way Washington handles things. And, I think slowly behind the scenes, Jayden Daniels and his camp are trying to let it be known that they're not totally happy with Washington and that they'd be willing to go somewhere else and maybe they'd like that better. But, yeah, I don't think he's going to just come out and say that. This isn't going to be Eli thing. Nothing like that. Right? I think he realizes, like you said, hey, I still might up in Washington. It's not the worst, and I'm going to make it happen, and we'll see where it goes from there. But the big thing is, like what you said, I mean, the Raiders are a team where, I mean, it's they don't have enough assets. I wouldn't promote that trade or be like, hey, I think you should do it. I think Jayden Daniels is really damn good. He's awesome. But they're a team that's got a lot of holes and planning of the future. And, man, to make that type of move, we've seen that. That wasn't that long ago. 13-3. I mean, you're going to have to get swap picks, probably give 2 future picks, first-round picks, and some other stuff to go along with that. And the Raiders aren't talented enough of a football team right now, in my opinion, to be trading away those type of assets just for one guy.
If you know that you are getting a guy who is going to be a generational talent, future Hall of Famer, but nobody knows that with any of these guys coming into the draft. We know that there is a high failure rate. So the question is, how much do you put on the table, and will it be enough to get them to say yes? 4 years ago, the Bengals didn't want any offers from the Dolphins for Joe Burrow. They were not going to take a trade at any amount. They were locked in on Joe Burrow, and their stubbornness, which was ill-advised at the time when you don't know what Joe Burrow is going to be at the NFL level, it paid off for them because they got a guy who has been great. Now, he's had a couple of serious injuries, but when he's played, he's been great. And he's the Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs killer in the AFC. Far more effective at that than Josh Allen or any other quarterback in the conference. But they didn't know that. Most teams will do the rational thing where they look at the guy they could have, they look at what they get in return. This is the argument we were making before we had a chance to talk to Caleb Williams and realize the Bears aren't trading out of that pick. You can get a lot more stuff. And if these draft picks are lottery tickets, give me more tickets. Give me more chances because I'm going to get more great players that way instead of going all eggs in one basket. But you have to have a team that's willing to give up all that stuff to put all the eggs in one basket. And you have to have another team that's willing to say, we'd rather have the eggs spread out into a bunch of different baskets. And it has to come together just right. It's almost like, with a Devontae Adams or a Tyreek Hill trade. You need one team that doesn't want to pay the receiver a lot of money and would rather have the draft picks, and you have another team that is willing to pay the receiver a crap load of money and give up all the draft picks, and it's got to come together just right. That's the challenge. Will it come together in a way that the Commanders are willing to do it, or some other team, whether it's the Vikings, whether it's the Raiders, whether it's the Giants, whether it's any team that may be lurking to pop up to number 2, would they put something on the table? Could they do it? I mean, the Raiders could, in theory, if the Commanders are willing to listen. I don't know whether or not they're willing to listen, but I think everybody's at least listening at this stage of the game. The question is there enough to get someone to say, you got a deal?
Yeah, no, it's a game-changing thing here for 7 days, before the draft when all this kind of happened this last week. I'm in the midst of today later, right? I'm going to unveil my mock draft. And that was one of the things that, you sat there and thought about, right? Was like, oh man, wait, how is this going to play out? Right? Is Washington, okay, now they don't take Jayden Daniels, right? I don't have inside info here, but by all due accounts, it sounds like, they might be one of the few teams that has Drake Maye way up there on their board. So they might go Drake Maye, which then I would think lands to New England taking Jayden Daniels, and then it's like, where does it go from there, right? If it goes like chalk, what I expected to, what we all expected to, Caleb Williams, right? Jayden Daniels, Commanders, and now it's the pick number 3 there. I expect, yes, New England to be looking to trade down a little bit. That's how I would look at it. I'd be looking at them as one of those teams, like you said, to have more tickets, more chances, to take shots on players instead of the all-in aspect on one guy. That's to me where it's a game changer right there. And that's where, depending on that number 2 pick and where they go, I think it'll dictate maybe 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4, and 5 about some trade possibilities there and how that all shakes out. And I think that's what's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds on Thursday night.
It would be amazing if at the end of the day, Drake Maye goes number 2, because throughout football season, it was Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, Drake Maye.
Right.
And then football season ends, coaches get involved in the scouting, people like you put out your list, and you've got Maye at number 6 out of 6 quarterbacks.
Right.
And the idea that he would climb back up and end up at the very top right after Caleb Williams, strange.
Yeah.
And, I haven't detected a lot of pushback from the Maye camp to all the talk that's been out there, possibly knocking him down.
No,
and maybe they're confident they didn't need to do it.
Yes.
Maybe at the end of the day, you know what? We don't need to push back. We'll be fine. This is all noise. This is all chatter. At the end of the day, Drake is going to be taken high, and maybe they're going to be vindicated. But if I was Drake Maye, I'd be getting very nervous throughout the past couple of months, because I went from being the presumed number 2 to who knows where to now possibly number 2.
No, it feels like they have inside info that there's 1 or 2 teams that like them, right, for sure, and they're comfortable with that, where they're going like, if we're on the board here, we're going to go. It has that feel, totally, right? And so it does feel like there's a little bit of a confidence out there as far as that. But like the Drake Maye thing is again, as we know, it only takes 1 or 2 teams. But I do know that it's all over the place enough for sure, right? It's not like, you talk to the league and it's like everybody's got Drake Maye as one, the second or third quarterback. No way. Absolutely not. He is more towards my number on a lot of teams where he's down the list a little bit. But again, teams look at it. It's the draft. It's about elite traits. It's about potential. If you watch Drake Maye's highlights, you're going to go, wow, right?
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.